Okay, so I found another crossover at a comic book shop not too long ago. This is Get Real Ghostbusters, published by IDW. This is a crossover comic between the IDW comic book Ghostbusters and the real Ghostbusters from the cartoon. And when I first found out about this, I simply could not pass this up. And look at that! I love how they put that on the cover there, like this is an episode of the show. It's really nice. I am a big fan of the Ghostbusters in general, but I really loved the real Ghostbusters. I've not really read much of the IDW Ghostbusters. I have the crossover comics with the Ninja Turtles. I might talk about those at some point. What makes this really interesting is not just the fact that it's a crossover, but the fact that it actually ties in with an episode of the real Ghostbusters involving this guy right here. The episode is from Season 2. It's called Janine Melnick's Ghostbuster, and it involves this guy right here, Proteus, who's a god. The plot of the episode is that there's a whole bunch of paranormal phenomenon. There's a whole bunch of paranormal phenomenon going on in New York, and the Ghostbusters are kind of being run ragged, going back and forth, trying to catch all the ghosts. And it all comes from this guy. And what's interesting is that in the episode in question, we really don't get much explanation for who he is or why he's doing all this. But the comic kind of fills in the gaps. It does so very well. It actually makes good use of the time in between, scenes in the episode, and there's a lot of attention to detail, like right down to a lot of the dialogue is like perfectly mashed up. There are a lot of extra scenes, like this right here did not happen in the episode. We never saw them catch this lady. They were hunting a bunch of other weird stuff. But where it's the connection to the episode starts is right here when they're coming back. And in the episode, they actually they cut from here, and I guess this was supposed to be happening before this scene, and we just never saw it, and they never talked about it, but it fits nicely. Again, the plot of the episode was the Ghostbusters are going after all these things, and they fight the statue at, I guess, what was it, Rockefeller Center, I think, the Atlas statue, and then they get zapped somewhere, and meanwhile, Janine is dealing with, like, a haunting in her apartment, and then after that, she goes off to find out what happened to the Ghostbusters, her and Slimer, and right here, a lot of like right down to the dialogue, and even a lot of the scenes a lot of the panels are taken right from scenes from the episode, which is again so much attention to detail. It's really well done. Again, also there's a lot of extra stuff in here too, because like none of this happened, but what's funny is, like, I was watching the episode again, and because it was early animation, there was a lot of like awkward pauses and things like that in it. And it's funny because, like, when you look at the episode in the context of this comic, it makes perfect sense. All the little like awkward animation I don't want to say errors, but like quirks. It all works out perfectly with all that. So anyway, the reason why Proteus took the Ghostbusters, according to this comic, is because he is afraid of being captured, and he saw the Ghostbusters and he was like, I better catch them before they catch me, or something like that. That I think that is like the weakest part of the whole thing, but it's at least a good plot point in order to get them together. So anyway, in the episode, the Ghostbusters vanish, and we don't. From here, the episode follows Janine and Slimer. But what actually happened to the Ghostbusters is they were transported to the IDW comic book world, and and there you can see the the awkward meeting between the comic book Ghostbusters and the cartoon Ghostbusters. And one thing really cool about this comic is that I was kind of worried they would go the Turtles Forever route, where you know, the older version would be portrayed as, you know, goofy and ridiculous, but no, not at all. They actually they work well together. They pal around a bit. They even go off on some ghost busting missions. And what's one of the things that really makes me want to look into the IDW Ghostbusters is because there does seem to be quite a few references to the comics. Although it is funny because the real Ghostbusters actually are referencing stuff that happened to them in episodes of the show, which I thought was really cool. Like, they mentioned that they fought Cthulhu, and they try to compare stories. Vakeman is talking to Egon, and he's trying to say, have you ever fought this, or ever fought this? And then they mention the Cthulhu episode, which is one of my favorite episodes. And they respond, Ray, no, we've never met that particular old one. It's really a lot of fanfare in this comic. So here's the really cool thing about this. Proteus actually lost the Ghostbusters in the multiverse, and he went around looking for them. So he had to go through different realities to find the real Ghostbusters. But and here's where things get really cool, because he ends up meeting the Extreme Team. Yes, the Extreme Ghostbusters are also in this comic. And what's interesting about this is that the Extreme Ghostbusters was supposed to happen in the 90s. It's supposed to be a direct sequel to the real Ghostbusters. But if this is supposed to be a parallel universe, it makes me wonder, because like apparently like the 90s are happening parallel to a dimension where the 80s are happening, because the real Ghostbusters are from the 80s, so I guess the timeline is a bit skewed here. Yeah, as far as I know, the Extreme Ghostbusters never got any love in terms of comic books. This is, as far as I know, the only time the team shows up in a comic, with the exception, of course, of Kylie Griffin, or at least not this version of Kylie Griffin, which actually leads to a really good joke, because in this panel she's going, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me!" And that's the IDW Kylie Griffin, who is a regular in the IDW comics. Now, here's where things get really crazy, because Proteus is searching the multiverse looking for the Ghostbusters, which gives us this amazing image of multi-dimensional Ghostbusters, which there's a lot going on in this page, and we need to address this, because right off the bat you can see right here the Ghostbusters from the Ghostbusters 2 NES game, not the one that came out in the US, the European version, which was ironically the best one on the NES. And then above them you have the Ghostbusters from the Sega Genesis game, and then down here I believe is the caricature versions of the Ghostbusters from the 2009 game, but they're from the PlayStation 2 and Wii version, because they weren't, instead of being rendered realistically, they had these weird looking caricatures. I don't know what's up with Ray's chin. Then you have, I think this is supposed to be the movie Ghostbusters? I'm not really sure. They're drawn very realistically, so I'm assuming that's the movie Ghostbusters. Then you have up here, from another episode of the real Ghostbusters, this is the People Busters. This is from the Ghost Dimension, and they're the ghost versions of the Ghostbusters that hunt people that fall into the Ghost Dimension. And then down in the corner you have the Ghostbusters from Slimer and the real Ghostbusters, and I really like that they established this as an alternate universe, so it doesn't mess up the real Ghostbuster show, because I don't think anybody liked this. I also kind of like that they established the Extreme Team as a alternate universe as well, because it helps to clear up some of the inconsistencies between real Ghostbusters and Extreme Ghostbusters. Now, there are some on here that I'm not really sure about. Like, this looks like the real Ghostbusters, but it doesn't quite, like, I don't know what's up with Vakeman. I'm not sure what this is all about. Does chibified, super deformed Ghostbusters. Then you got like Gundam robot Ghostbusters. I don't know what that's from. I'm not sure who these two are. If anybody can clear that up for me, feel free to leave a comment. Also, then there's these guys up here. They look like a SWAT team or something. I don't know. But what I do recognize is these guys right here, who are from the Ghostbusters game Sanctum of Slime, which, from what I hear, was not very good. But it's nice that they get acknowledged because they're a completely different team. And in fact, you get to see them show up in their universe very briefly. So that was really cool. So yeah, this whole bit right here is amazing. Like, I would love to have this as like a poster or something. Just all the different Ghostbusters universes. And yes, this is all of the Ghostbusters universes. There are no other Ghostbusters that they're missing from here. This is everything. This is absolutely every single version of the Ghostbusters. And there are no others, no matter what anyone says. But yeah, I really, really like this comic. It was really cool, especially since I'm a fan of not just like of Ghostbusters in general, but of the real Ghostbusters. I love to see them get a little bit of love next to like the IDW Ghostbusters. I actually do want to read up more on the IDW Ghostbusters. This and the Ninja Turtles comic kind of got me well motivated to check out more of their stories. I'm gonna see if maybe I can find some like collections somewhere, maybe read up on that. But yeah, if you are a fan of the Ghostbusters, I would definitely pick this up. So yeah, that's it for this one. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think.